Freddie, good evening. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast tonight. It's really great to have you here.
Josh Guerrero, hey, it's a pleasure to see you again. I'm excited to have a chat, man, just like two old chums. Let's do it.
Two old chumps and two old Marines. Let's not forget that part as well. So, it's always nice to meet a Marine out in the wild because even though you and I just met for the first time just a couple of months ago, it's just something about a Marine meeting another Marine. It's almost kind of like we've known each other for a long time. It's just I think that's just the bond and the brotherhood that Marines and I guess I'll even say veterans alike just share.
Uh, I'd agree. I think it's a really special thing, especially among Marines. I work with a lot of the other services. I've got best friends that were in the Army and the Navy, but when you meet a Marine, another Marine, it's like you knew him before. It's like we're we're cloned into every generation of Marines, and then the new Freddy is there right now. His name's Gabe, actually, with Third Recon Battalion. But there's an Osuna there, there's a Guerrero there, and it's like we were, broke bread together in another life. So really cool.
Absolutely. So let's go back in time a little bit in your story here, because I always like to start at the beginning with my guests, because every great story has a beginning. So, like I just mentioned, you are a fellow Marine. So, can you take us back a little bit here? What kind of set you down that path? What sort of inspired you to go and join the Marine Corps?
Well, my journey began from a really young age. Growing up, was really inspired by one of my foster fathers, Octavio Payne, who served in World War II. He was an infantryman, and his favorite holiday was Pearl Harbor Day. And he would come out and he'd bring these katanas out from an officer, Japanese officer, uh, who they had ambushed his unit and took the swords. And anyway, he had those swords, and the family still has those swords to this day. But he'd bring those swords out and he'd chop a new cut in the concrete with the sword. And we thought he was the coolest guy in the world. All the kids in the neighborhood would come over and watch him do this, and he'd tell the stories about being lost in the jungle in Guam and in the Philippines. And it was a really cool story. But so that was my big inspiration at a very young age. So, I wanted to be like Rambo. I wanted to join the army. I saw Tom Berenger born on the 4th of July when he walks in the gym to recruit, you know, uh, new Marines. And uh, I went to a drive-in theater and saw Sniper when it came out. And that really inspired me. And the Marine Corps really had my heart from an early age. I always knew I wanted to be a Marine.
So, kind of learning early on to sort of navigate the human terrain as you described it. How did that kind of sort of work for you when you kind of first joined the Marine Corps? And maybe we can even just talk about basic training at the beginning. Of course, you're with like a bunch of recruits from all over the country. Of course, you have drill instructors that are demanding a lot of you. And then maybe you can even go a little bit beyond this. Like once you actually made it to the fleet, you have a chain of command. And so, how did kind of like learning to navigate the human terrain kind of serve you, which is kind of like those aspects of you joining the Marine Corps?
I without a lot of guidance, uh, a lot of my time was left to my own, uh, my own development and self-image and who I told myself I was. And luckily, I landed in the Marine Corps because I excelled in small unit tactics and navigation. Anything in the bush, I really thrived. Boot camp was easy for me. The hardest part of boot camp was the boredom. Uh, that was for me. I was already physically fit. I played football in high school and always stayed in shape. But the discipline was very difficult. The structure and the discipline and the regimented activities and people getting in your drill instructors getting in your face and telling you whatever they want to tell you. You can't tell them nothing back. I love that. It was hilarious things they came up with. And so yeah, Staff Sergeant Dalco, Staff Sergeant Catalan, Staff Sergeant Erickson, and Gunnery Sergeant Smith from Platoon 1065, man. graduated in 99 from boot camp. I was an infantry. Uh, I signed up for infantry, and just through a strange turn of events, I ended up passing a selection to go to presidential security with the Yankee White program. So I spent a couple years in Yankee White, my first go in Washington, D.C., and then ended that tour in Annapolis at the U.S. Naval Academy. And actually won the United States Naval Academy Marine of the Year Award in 2001, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
So, yeah, that was my early years. From there, I went to 1st Battalion, 6th Marines, which is an infantry unit. You just live in the bush, you eat, sleep, and shit Marine Corps, man. And that was a life for me, brother. It was 1st Battalion, 6th Marines during a brand new war. You know, all your dreams and romance of combat were soon to be realized, and it was just a matter of time. So we deployed on a UDP to Japan while everybody was going to Iraq and Afghanistan. And but it was a good experience. I got to do some tracking in the jungle. I went to jungle warfare training school, jungle warfare survival. Did some tracking out there, and learning survival, doing a lot of guerrilla operations, raid operations. Just learning how to take care of yourself long term in the jungle. That's a challenge in itself. Uh, let alone trying to wage war. You know,
Right.
so that I was there learning to become a young man in the Marine Corps in the bush, and I wouldn't have had it any other way, man. It was awesome.
Now, kind of a stable question that I ask all the veterans that come on the show. And of course, I'd like to ask you this as well. Where were you on 9/11?
On 9/11, I was in infantry squad leaders course, and I was in infantry squad leaders course on the morning of 9/11. We were getting ready for our on September 11th, 2001. We were preparing for a patrol exercise, a week-long patrol exercise that we were going to be evaluated on. So 8 o'clock that morning, I had my pack on a scale, getting weighed, being inspected, final orders before step off, and one of the instructors, the ISLC Infantry Squad Leaders Course instructors, walks in with the radio, sets it down in front of us, turns it on, and that's my first experience was on an FM radio of hearing of the 9/11 attack. And so as we're getting ready, we're allowed to listen to the radio. Everybody's getting hyped up. You know, at this point, we knew we were going to war within 5 minutes. 5 minutes of listening to the communications on that radio, and within an hour, two people from that class would disappear, and I'd never see them again. And they were both Arab speakers, Marines, and they were good friends of mine. But I never saw them again within an hour of learning of that. So we stepped off and we did a week long patrol exercise, maneuver warfare, and we took it very seriously. You know, we everything we did, we knew that our life could depend on, our ability to duplicate the lessons they were trying to teach us. So we took tactics very seriously.
So, at what point did you first deploy over to the Middle East?
So I got back from South Pacific deployment. I transferred actually PCS because I reenlisted, and I went to 1st Battalion, 4th Marines at 1st Marine Division. And we deployed 4 months after I got there to OIF 2 in 2003 and 2004. And 2004 OIF 2 was afloat with 11th Marine. It was with the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit, and we went by ship, stopped in Hawaii on the way to have one last hurrah, and tie one on. That was a blast, from what I remember and what I'm told. And it was a good time. I got to live, that experience. Showed up in Kuwait, did some climatization, and we were off to Najaf, straight to Najaf, Iraq. And within a month of being there, we would be in heavy combat for the next, foreseeable future in Iraq. So,
Now, there's obviously a whole lot that we can like take a deep dive into throughout your service, but of course we only have just so much time on the podcast to go through it. But so just to kind of maybe summarize it, if you will, what would you say are kind of like some of your big key takeaways from your time in the Marine Corps? And I'll even say maybe your greatest life lessons. And I know that's a bit of a loaded question because we gained so much from our time serving this country in the military. But what kind of comes to mind if you can reflect on it?
that's a great question, and I think we all reflect on that a lot. And the answer changes, I think, as we mature, because our values change, and certainly mine have. Uh, I got out in 2008 after serving 10 years in the Marines, and so as I matured, especially seeing the civilian sector, working with different organizations, different military units, and different agencies, and finding mentors, which is something the Marine Corps always taught me, was to find a mentor you want to emulate and be drawn to him and copy him. And so I'd say, man, there's so much. The tangibles, leadership. When something's not getting done, get it done. That's something that has stuck with me, and I've noticed, especially in the civilian sector, in the business sector, as a federal acquisition specialist, and running my own business, working with different companies in the gun industry, performance apparel industry, training industry. The common thing I see among Marines is just the initiative to get things done. You know, um, that's probably the biggest gift they gave me. The Marine Corps gave me loyalty. Your word is your bond. A handshake is good as a contract to a Marine. And if you call somebody a friend or a brother, you mean it. There's a lot of jaw jacking out here in today's society about, oh, brother this and brother that, till Valhalla this and all that. And I've seen men in their darkest places, and when they get to that dark place, more people are running away from them than running to them. And Marines don't do that to each other, from my experience. So that's a pretty special thing, man. I've got brothers all over the country.
Absolutely, and it's interesting. Every time I pose this question to a fellow veteran, it's usually just it's pretty much the same things that you just mentioned. I mean, of course, as veterans, there's a lot of I guess you can call them benefits that we may get. We may get discounts at restaurants, or we may get like preferences when it comes to applying for, like, let's say federal jobs and this, that, the other thing, the GI Bill. And there's a lot of tangibles that we may get. But seldomly do I ever really hear that come up when veterans reflect on their service, or when they talk about why they did it or what they really took away from it. It's always like these things that you just mentioned: the camaraderie, the brotherhood, the discipline, the leadership skills, and just basically ways to, I guess you can say, just continue to be of service, like even after you are done with active duty, it seems like.
You're exactly right. I have found, so you've got to find a way to not only be the Marine you want to be in the civilian world, but you got to be resilient. You've got to find ways of adapting to a new way of life without any direction, without anybody holding you to it, and and making a life in this real world for yourself that's meaningful. And it's very hard to come out here in this real world and find something as meaningful as what you did in the military. you know so what I did was I etched my own way, and I did that through service. And part of what I do, the Greenside mission, is to serve others, helping people to save other people with their loss, helping police officers to make sure they come home at night to their families, by creating more aware and situationally understanding people. Uh, Creating, I deal with educators, business owners. I've provided a lecture at MIT through a friend of mine, Daniel Hewitt, um, on resiliency skills. So I'm trying to reach as many people as I can, because my way of adapting to this world after the exciting time I had in the Marines was by service. And that's what I'm doing. I am taking people to a whole new level of understanding and transcending thought processes that they thought they would never escape.
So the skill of tracking, where does that kind of fall in the timeline of your story? I'm going to assume that, of course, it does stem to some of the experiences that you had as a kid. That sounds like that sort of set the framework for this. But where does it kind of sort of fall in for more of like a practical sense, and actually utilizing tracking? Maybe even started teaching tracking at a certain time. Was it in the Marine Corps? Was it after the Marine Corps? Fill us in on that.
Well, when I became a Marine sniper, uh, in 2005, I went to Scout Sniper School in Stone Bay, Camp Lejeune. 4TAC 05 was my class number, if anybody's checking. And so I became a hog, man, a hunter, a gunman. I found my place in the Marine Corps, and I really loved the ethos, the professionalism, that next level of professional warrior lifestyle. And that was to become a Marine sniper, because it was all about discipline. And so I learned tracking as a boy. I went through my first tracking school at the age of 13 years old. Uh, the Pasco Yaqui tribe would send me to different schools or different experiences if I did good in school. So some of the things I would like to do would do outdoor activities like tracking, survival, orienteering, hiking, things like that. So when I became an infantryman, those things served me, but not to the level of being able to teach others. I was able to do it, but I wasn't really able to teach it because there was no language for it. Uh, as I excelled in the Scout Sniper community, what I really excelled at was getting Marine snipers to understand the importance of developing an intimacy with their environments, the people, the flora, and the fauna. And if you can get a deeper this goes back to Sun Tzu's philosophies of understanding your environment and your enemy and respecting it and being in tune with it, tuning into the frequency of those things, and it'll bring you home. It'll help you accomplish your mission, but it also keep you and your brothers alive. And so tracking was a huge part of that for me. So much that I had actually arranged many trainings at First Marine Division for Marine Corps Scout Snipers and Recon Marines while I was active duty. I had the Army pay for it. Don't ask me how I did that, but my commanders loved me because they didn't have to spend a dime. I had the Army pay for it all, and so we had different levels of tracking schools. 2006 and 2007, we brought contractors out from Tactical Tracking Operations School. David Scott Donnellan, Randy Merriman, Ray Southard, who else? Mike Vaught, David Reeder. David Reeder's now the owner of Breach Bay and Clear and a huge name in the gun industry. So shout out to you, Dave, uh, who's a respected tracker himself. And so tracking served me well. It served me in combat. It served me professionally in the Marine Corps. It set me aside from anybody else because nobody else could teach those skills. And in 2008, when I got out, I was hired immediately by the Department of Defense to work at Fort Huachuca, teaching the Army's combat tracker course. So I walked into my dream job after I got out of the Marine Corps, uh, making a nice salary, running around in the desert near Fort Huachuca, Coronado National Forest, training SEALs, Green Berets, Rangers. We had the Dutch Royal Marines, British Marine Commandos. So So not only did I get to teach them, I got to learn from them and see how they operated. And all those little things that they were doing, I was absorbing and taking into my mind because I ultimately wanted to create more efficient uh, warriors. So my trainings today encapsulate all this experience that I've been able to have exposed to those special operations units.
So, at what point did you think about establishing Greenside Training? When did that kind of sort of come into play where you actually kind of want to make this a business for yourself?
Probably in 2010, I was teaching a class up in the Mount Warfare Training Center. And many years before that, I had thrown around the idea. But in 2010, a good friend of mine, Josh Robinson from Omaha, Nebraska, and I were up in the mountains in the Sierra Nevadas teaching tracking to some Marine snipers and 40 Commando. And we were eating lunch under a tree in the shade and sharing some jerky. And we had the collective idea of starting our own school. And we were going to start our own tracking school, and we were going to do what I was doing at the time. Josh was actually in the Marine Corps. He was one of the Marines he was the liaison actually for teaching the Marines out there in the 40 Commando unit. And uh, Josh was really into tracking like I was. We were just, you know, two birds of a feather, man. We really jived. We talked about tracking. We just got really excited about it. And Josh said, "Man, I can't wait to get out. I'm going to run this school with you. We're going to teach tracking all over the world." Well, a year later, 2011, Josh had already returned to 5th Marines, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, to deploy as a scout sniper chief. And Josh was killed on August 11th, 2011, in Marja, Afghanistan. And so I always remember him in my classes. I always mention, Josh holds the #1 Black Wolf patch that I wear for him. I'm #3. And let's see, where's the Black Wolf patch? I don't have it right there. So I'm #3. Josh is #1. There you go.
And
You're
I'm
number
I'm
70.
I'm I'm 77.
You're 77. There you go, man. And that's in honor of Josh. That's why I made that patch. And to remember, it always keeps me humble to remember that, there's people that sacrificed everything who would love to be here doing what I'm doing. It keeps me grounded.
Yeah, well, so like I mentioned, and you and I kind of discussed before we hit record here. Of course, you and I first met because I am a student of yours. I took your Weaponize the Senses course that you offered back in June when you came out here to Texas. And one thing I appreciated about the course, we're learning like actual practical tracking skills, but like you said, you always like to try to find like some overlap that we could take just and implement into other aspects of our life too, like just being intentional with ourselves and our attention and everything like that. So it seems to me like in this day and age, Freddie, is that like we are so distracted in this day and age. There's like so much out there that's trying to grasp our attention. We got 24-hour news cycles. We got mainstream media. We got social media. We got streaming services and everything like that. So I guess any advice on how to kind of sort of maybe, I guess, for lack of better terms, tune that out so maybe we can actually like be a little bit more present and intentional with ourselves and our senses as kind of you sort of described in the course.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things affecting us in society as functioning adults. All of us are in different stages of our maturity. All of us are in different stages of acceptance of our reality. Maybe we haven't reached actualization yet, which is our ultimate goal, right? But in our journey to reach self-actualization, there's many things that contribute to that. And one certainly I would always promote is spirituality and faith. Now, whether your interpretation of the great creator is Jesus, our Lord and Savior, or another figure, it doesn't matter. What matters is faith that there's something bigger than us. There's a larger goal and meaning in our life um, at the end of the road. So that's a huge part of it. You know, uh, the other factors that are affecting us today are the overwhelming overload of sensory stimulation, specifically the draws to our dopamine system, and that's through cell phones. You know, we all rely on cell phones. We all rely on computers in some way, shape, or form. No matter what our job is, we all have cell phones, and it's a very hard thing for us today to balance this information overload when there's been never been anything like it before. It's still developing and it's getting faster and it's targeting and it's consumer science that's being used against us and all these things that are going against our senses overall create atrophy, whether that's a dumbing down of our nose, dumbing down of our ears, our lack of field of view, our lack of depth. You know, how we apply our eyes are different now because we're always looking at that screen right here. When people come to me, I'm breaking that and I'm getting them out into the woods and I'm telling them, hey, vary your focal point of view. You know, look 15 feet now. Now look 50 feet. Now look 5 feet. And you're always cycling your senses. And what that does is what I'm doing is I'm trying to reignite those neurons in their brain that are inherently theirs, right? You are inherently gifted these things by the great creator to keep you alive and so that you can experience his beautiful bounty in this world. And, but unfortunately, our lifestyles are with this device in our hand is slowly diminishing that experience and substituting it for things that aren't real. So a lot of the work I do focuses on that dopamine drip, right? The dopamine drip you're getting every day from your cell phone pales in comparison to the ones I'm bringing out in you in the bush. You know, I'm showing you what a toe dig. You know, you see a toe dig, but then I break it down. Hey, toe dig just ain't a toe dig. It does this, this, and this is how it can serve you in your life. And this is how you read it. And the light bulb goes off, and there you go. There's a beautiful dopamine drip topped off with a little serotonin, and then and there's a little emotion invoked. And then what that does is it invokes memory and retention for the lessons I'm teaching. So not only am I able to teach an important lesson, I'm using those systems that you're inherently born with to drive home, to give you something that you can use in the future when I'm not there.
Yeah, and actually, you might appreciate this. So one of the jobs that I have right now, I'm a professional archaeologist, and my current project is I work in an urban environment. I work in downtown San Antonio on a construction site, and my first day back at work after the course, because if you can imagine working on a construction site, it's just constant noise coming from all different directions. There's so many people working, so many people are doing different tasks. But I tried to like isolate the different like sounds that I was hearing. It's like, okay, there's a jackhammer like to my right. I don't have to look that way. I can just hear it. It's like, okay, here comes like the excavator coming up behind me. Let me like step off to the side here or something like that. And then also you'll like this. So they removed all the asphalt the construction crews did because they're getting ready to repave this street. So basically, this whole construction site is like a giant spore pit. So of course, I'm looking
Awesome,
at I'm looking at the different tracks that a lot of the construction workers are leaving as they're walking around the track and just kind of getting some practice in that way too. But that just really just seems to be the way that it is in the modern day. And like you mentioned, it's totally different from our ancient ancestors and the world world that they inhabited because their senses and their ability to track, that was like literally how they were able to carry on their lineage throughout the ages. But it seems like as we seek comfort in modernity, it seems like maybe a lot of this is kind of starting to phase out. So how is that kind of sort of affected your mission in Greenside Training to, kind of instill these skills like in our modern day warriors? Like, you teach military, you teach law enforcement, of course, you teach also people in the civilian populace as well. So how has that been difficult to kind of sort of break? Has that been like maybe a common denominator you observed amongst many students?
You know, physical fortitude can be learned. You know, mental fortitude certainly helps growing up that way and being groomed for that type of lifestyle, being tough. Cowboys, farmers, growing up hunting, growing up in the barrio, growing up in gang infested neighborhoods, whatever your lifestyle. Those kind of backgrounds make hard people out of Americans. But when we, like you said, when we are drawn to modernity, because it is a human, we want better, right? Why wouldn't we? Right? The great creator gave us this life and this beautiful senses in order to achieve a better way of life for ourselves. And with that comes quality of life. And we want a good quality of life that was better than our own parents. We want our children to have a good quality of life. But we have to balance that. I believe we have to balance that because we never know when our local, our municipal, our state, our federal society will collapse. And if it collapses, you're only going to fall back on the knowledge that you obtained in training or education. And if you don't have any skills, the two most important skills my buddy Pat Dietrich tells me is people that can heal and people that can kill. Those are going to be the two biggest things people need when in societal collapse. So if you don't have those skills, because you just focused on comfort, you're going to need guys like me. And so, but to me, a lot of it is mental state, mental preparation, living the lifestyle. We have this thing called symbiosis in our bodies, and we always have this constant ability to thermal regulate. And because I can turn the temperature up or down in this room, I can turn the temperature up and down in my car. I can escape it. I can go inside if it's too hot outside. I can put more clothing on if I'm too cold. Well, what that done to us in the last 200 years is make us soft. And so get yourself out there, do a polar plunge, take your body into those cold extremes, those heat extremes, learn about what you need to take care of yourself. And along with that is intelligence. We see all this information being pushed to us constantly. We have to regulate our reactions to this information. And that's the hardest part. The children have a handful of skills to emotionally regulate. 13 years old, 8 to 14 years old, they only got a handful of skills they learned from their parents. And that's just through osmosis. They've got 100 different feelings at the same time, and they have no tools to deal with it. So like you said, when you're on that construction site, you were trying to isolate that sound, distance, direction. Well, that's a form of grounding. That helps you to not be hypervigilant, to calm your body, to tell you, you know what, I am in control. I'm safe right now. On the other hand, if there's something wrong over here, that helps me to observe, decide, and act to keep myself safe. So I'm all about the sensory system. And today, I think there's equally an effort by people like me, other people in the training industry doing medical training. They're doing, small arms training on the range. They're adding stress, performance on demand, vehicle driving. all these things, and people are attending them more and more. I think more people are involved in personal protection courses today than ever in history. And I think it's because people are starting to figure out, look, I got to break this dopamine addiction. I got to go see the real world and do real things with real people, because they're out there. We had a perfectly good 20-year war of knowledge, man. Let's go learn from these people, you know?
Well, it's also just the connection component that you mentioned as well. I mean, because for the weekend that we spent together, and also with all the other students, because weaponize the senses is a 2-day, 16-hour long course that you offer. It's just, was there any point during either one of those days where any one of us pulled out our cell phones and was just scrolling away when we could have just been talking to one another, right? I think that was just kind of an amazing thing. And then also, of course, shout out to the Ranch TX for providing us with such an amazing facility to conduct the course in, because it's just like, I don't know, just being there, I'm like, I don't really want to know what's happening outside of, the perimeter of this property. I just want to focus like on the task at hand, the people I'm with, and fostering these connections and everything like that. And like in my own dwelling with my girlfriend and I, we have a rule at our dinner table, and that is no phones. Like that's a rule for our guests and everything like that. And of course, it's the rule for her and I is just no phones, because it's just practicing that presence. And even sometimes when we have guests over and we implement that rule, even like long after dinner, everyone just like left their phones on the counter or wherever they left it. No one is bringing it to the living room as we're talking. And that's just something, I don't know how much that is occurring in this day and age. It seems like every time I go out and I see people at restaurants, like either a group or in a couple, one of them's got their phone out and is not engaging with the person who's right across from them. It's kind of crazy. But like you said, there's technology is great. You and I kind of are having this discussion right now, thanks to technology. But it seems like you mentioned, the balance is so off. It seems.
And like I said, I think there's an awakening now. I think there's a slow awakening in the United States with people. We always talk bad about the next generation, right? That's how it always is. But this generation that's coming right now, who are going to run the world pretty soon here after me, I'm not running the world, but after my generation, um, they're smart. The Marines that are in right now are every bit of Marine that we were, but smarter. And the Marine Corps is very, very intelligent by taking advantage and exploiting the skills that they have learned in technology and information processing in their brains. They process stuff faster than we did at their ages, and they're rely on this so much they're reshaping the Marine Corps around it. And I have hope. I tend to think, I'm an optimist. In the big picture, in human history, we're just a little tiny little speck in there. We're not even on the map. So who are we to make all this fluff and big deal about everything going on around us? Once I thought about it that way, um, I saw that I can just help the people around me, and maybe I can reach and help others. But there is a shift. People are realizing the unhealthy habit of the phone addiction, the dopamine addiction, having to scroll to that next dopamine drip. Oh, what's the next funny video? Who am I going to share that with? How are they going to react to me? Or what do they think about me by the content I like or share? And it's all an image. And if we can come to our true selves and get to know ourselves, most importantly, and the gifts that we have inherently, like our senses, abilities to see, our ability to hear, it's an amazing system. And perhaps if we can realize that, we can make more better of our time on Earth. And that's where I'm at, man. In a really cool philosophical way, bro. I enjoy it, man. Things aren't so serious for me. I teach tracking for a living. Come on. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, there's so much from our past that is timeless. You brought up Sun Tzu earlier. I mean, the art of war has never been out of print ever since Sun Tzu released that book. Same thing with like other warrior philosophers of the past. Miyamoto Musashi, when he wrote the Book of Five Rings, like hundreds of years ago, that hasn't been out of print ever since there too. And then of course, like and also with you doing tracking, I mean, it's a timeless skill that has like our ancient ancestors like were very good at this, and that's why they were able to carry on their lineage like we've talked about earlier as well. And then you can of course just see the enthusiasm with the people that you teach, with all the students that you had at Weaponize the Senses that attended your course, and also the staff from the ranch TX that were out there as well. Is just, I mean, we were just like so bewildered, but yet fascinated when you're talking about like how the heel strikes first, and then the rounds up to the toe and creates like the toe dig. To how the hue of the soil determines the age, and then when you line up the toe dig, that determines the direction, and then you can orient your senses, your weapon, your dog, your drone, your team in that direction too. It's just so there's definitely like you said there. I would agree. There certainly is an awakening where I think more and more people are recognizing that like these timeless skills and philosophies that have existed throughout the ages, they've existed and they persevered for so long for a reason. There is a reason why people are still teaching these things and want to go back and learn on these things, because they're timeless. And so how does that make you feel overall as you continue on with your mission at Greenside Training? And again, that this growing enthusiasm, and it sounds like you've been really busy lately, because I mean, you left here in Texas and you went straight to the East Coast. So kind of how you feeling about like Greenside Training moving forward from here on out?
I think that I'm now able to be the proper custodian of this knowledge. It's taken 15 years, but now I've reached the point of self actualization and self awareness, maturity, in order to be the proper custodian of this knowledge. And the way I'm able to deliver it now is more impactful for people. I can take my experiences and I can empathize with my students, you know, find out what they need and why they're really here. Is it about the tracking, or is it about the connection? Is it about the experience? And then I drive the bus from there. And that's what's important. People are now in this mindset of experiences over things. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. I love this generation because of that. It's so uh to other generations, they look at that experience over things mentality and they say, oh, how selfish, you know. But to me, I say, you know what? The happier that person is, the better for society. The better for society if that person finds himself, finds his spirituality, finds meaning in this life for him or her. That's what's most important. Those are the people that aren't cutting you off in traffic. Those are the people not playing bumper carts at Costco with you. So, just a little bit of grace and mercy and compassion for each other. That's what we need in this world. Um, there's a very violent side to what I do. I'm teaching operators how to hunt bad guys, but I'm always getting them to remember, the very human side of this. At the end of that track line, there's an intelligent human being, and if he has a gun, you need to be prepared.
So we are probably looking at like an early September release for this episode. So what do you have on the docket for the remainder of 2025 as far as coursework is concerned? I believe you are actually, I think in mid-October, you're heading out to Florida to do another Weaponize the Senses course, and I think you got a few others that you're working on as well, yeah?
Yeah, the one in Florida is very exciting because it's actually going to be a teamed up event with Guerrilla Armament and Guerrilla Medicine, Guerrilla Medical. My friend Chris Hazenhauer from Guerrilla Medical, he's a 18 Delta career soft guy and with a lot of experience. We'll be teaching the class combined with tracking. I'll teach people how to track, weaponize the senses for 2 days. We'll combine that into a scenario involving tactical medicine. So we'll be doing some force on force, weaponize the senses with some UTM, shooting each other up in the bush, teaching them small unit tactics, patrolling, hand and arm signals, all the basic stuff. How to move, how to exploit terrain, how to profile terrain, and it's going to be a blast. But anyway, Chris and I are on some big projects, and it's all about the science of what we're doing. You know, uh, after that, well, next week I'll be in Bozeman, Montana for anybody in the Montana area. So I'll be in Bozeman on teaching a class August 16th and 17th of next week. That's going to be a blast. Beautiful Yellowstone National Forest right there. I'll get to hang out with one of my heroes, James Halfpenny. He's invited me to come hang out with him. He's the author of North American Mammal Tracks. And then from there, I'll be heading to, let's see, we got a class in Tucson at the end of August. We've got a class in Loma Mar, California, near the Redwood Forest. That's September 7th and 8th. If anybody's in the San Francisco area, hit me up. That's going to be sponsored by Theorem. Theorem makes the switchback flashlight accessories. They also make a Faraday cell phone case and a body cam case for your deuce gear. And among other accessories, Theorem and Andrew Fraser is going to be out there. He's going to be sponsoring the event. So come out if you're in the California area. So then we go into the Florida class. We're going to be near Sarasota, Florida. That's going to be October 16th and 17th. We're teaching that class. So if you're interested in the Florida area, please come out. We'll send you a coupon code. We'll put the coupon code in the chat for you so you can put it with this for a 30% discount. If you guys
Oh,
are interested,
wow.
all right?
Oh, that's
And
generous.
then after October, we'll be, let's see, end of October, we're heading to possibly Alaska for a class. So I'm all over the country. This system is universal. I'll teach you how to track people and animals, and then you take this foundation and you can track in any environment. You know, I'm not on the old school tracking teacher kick of, oh, my craft is a dying craft and I got to keep it alive and all this nonsense. I'm kind of on my own island as a tracking instructor, actually. You know, I've been doing this for 15 years, but a lot of what I teach and how I teach um, really deals with the human mind. And I'm always developing new processes for making this thing tighter. You know, cops are using my stuff to catch bad guys. Search and rescue are using my stuff to find missing and vulnerable people. I'm teaching children programs in the summer, and I'm teaching educators. I advise for a school teaching human terrain analysis based on tracking. You know, so this skill, I love it. It's been amazing, and I would love to share my passion and knowledge with anybody who's open to learning from me.
All right. Well, I'll include links to your website and where they can go and look up course dates and sign up. It'll be in the show notes. And if anyone's watching us talk on YouTube, it'll be down in the description below, so they can go there and click away and find everything. All right. Well, Freddie, as we start winding down here, I have a few more standard questions that I'd like to ask you. And these are questions that I ask all my guests toward the end of the show. And the first thing I like to ask my guests to do is to issue a challenge to our listeners. We got to get some great information from you today. We got to hear some great stories from you today. But as I always say, information and stories can really only take our listeners and viewers so far. They themselves would have to go and follow up with action when they're done listening to us talk today, to go out and do amazing things in their lives. So with that, what challenge would you issue to our listeners and viewers today for them to go out there and start living a more adventurous life?
Find the deepest woods you can find as soon as you can. Find the deepest, most natural terrain you can find. Do your homework, please. Bring enough water and do all the basics. All right. But find that spot. that you believe no one's been to in a while, sit there, take a nap. And when you wake up, you'll see the birds have returned and the scent that you've disturbed has all returned to its natural state. The animals around you are talking and chirping, the insects and the smells and the wind, the thermals blowing off the crest of the mountain in front of you, and enjoy it and realize that that belongs to you, the American people. And we have this beautiful country, one of the most beautiful, expansive natural wildlands on the globe is just right outside your city. Get out there and enjoy it. You know, it has gifts and secrets for you if you're willing to listen to it and take its lessons. You can live a more fulfilling life, and it will resonate in every aspect of your life. And it'll always be there for you when you're tired, when you're sad, or you're mad, or you're angry, or confused. It's always there waiting for you. It's never going to lie to you. It's never going to cheat you, and it's just a beautiful thing. You know, find yourself there, and you know, if you and let me know about your experience. I'd love to hear about
Yeah, you got me brainstorming over here. It's like, where do I know near me that's like that?
it.
So yeah, I'm brainstorming right now, and I got some ideas going, but I can't tell you. It's got to be a secret because if it's going to be my secret spot, I got to keep it to myself. But I'm thinking, right on. All right. So what I have for you next is my final three. Again, three standard questions. And I like to think that these are fun questions that I ask all my guests towards the end of the show. And the first of these three questions is, what is your favorite place that you've been to so far?
My favorite place, hands down, is Alaska. So I've been to Alaska twice. First time I was teaching an Army unit up there in Fort Richardson. Second time was on pleasure, uh, and it's my favorite place in the world. It's it's uh it's where I find the most natural, undisturbed terrain, and that's to me that's where beauty, that ancient forest, is what I look for. The untouched green moss sprawled against the forest floor, just emitting those spores in the air as you step across it, where you're tracking a moose and a bear or a bear, and they're interacting with the terrain and the drifts of the winds, and it's just beautiful, man. I love Alaska. Second would probably be the Sierra Nevada mountains.
All right. Awesome. All right. So next question. What is one thing on your bucket list that you have yet to do?
One thing on my bucket list, well, I want to go teach some anti-poaching units in South Africa. So that's something I'm arranging. I haven't done it yet. Look, that's kind of that's a tracker's bucket list, to work in Africa. And but yeah, I've got a lot of stuff I want to do. I'm excited. I've got a whole another half of my life to live to get it done. And I've seen a lot of places on this earth, and it's a beautiful place.
All right. Absolutely. All right. And the last of these three questions, and this is a two-parter. What is your favorite animal, and have you seen this animal in the wild?
My favorite animal is a wolverine, and I recently saw my first wolverine. I was in Montana teaching a class 3 months ago for the Mandan Hidatsa Arikara tribe, teaching their emergency operations center, hosted by Emily Sitting Bear, who's a great tracker herself. And I was running one of her dogs on a trail, and we were training, and I was running one of her dogs. Coda was his name. He's a bloodhound. And Coda and Emily was in front of me with her dog, and she uh, jumped a wolverine, ran right across our trail into a beaver dam. And that was pretty special for me. So
Awesome. Right on. All right. Well, Freddie, that's it. That's all the questions that I have for you tonight. But before we call it a day here, let's just go over how our listeners and viewers can go connect with you. You know, you're on social media. Of course, you got Greenside Training, and you got upcoming courses as we've discussed as well. So, yeah, how can we reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, I do a lot of my course scheduling through Instagram. People contact me through there, and we get the ball rolling there. We start email chain, and we get a class scheduled near you. There's classes all over the country this year. Next year there'll be more. I'm trying to hit every corner of the country, including Washington State next year. Um, but you can go to my website, greensidetraining.com. Uh, Check there. If there's not a class that's within reasonable distance of you, contact me directly, and I will do everything I can to make it happen in your area. And if you know anybody that's been to any of my courses, um, that's what I do. I get to you because that's where the knowledge needs to be. So my Instagram is at greensidetraining.com. You can follow me on Facebook at Freddy Osuna or Greenside Training. They're both on there as well. Uh, I have a book I published in 2012 called Index Tracking Essential Guide to Trailing Man and Beast. That's available through Amazon Books um, by Freddy Osuna. So you can look up Amazon Books and just type in Freddy Osuna. You'll see my work on there. If you want to send me a book, I'll sign it for you and send it right back. And where else? You can follow me on Recoil Off Grid as well. So Recoil Magazine. Sometimes my stories are in there. People writing about my courses. Recoil Off Grid Magazine is the prepper little brother of Recoil, and I'm often 2 or 3 times a year they cover my courses and some of my content in Recoil Magazine.
All right. Well, excuse me. Like I mentioned, I'll have everything linked up in the show notes for this episode. Or once again, if we have viewers who are watching us talk on YouTube, it'll be down in the description below. They can just go there and click away and find everything. All right. Well, Freddie, I want to thank you very much for taking the time for joining me today. I appreciate you and just how you're showing up in the world. And like I said, to give my own personal review here, I definitely really got a lot out of taking weaponize of the senses when you came here to Texas. So I definitely would recommend any of our listeners and viewers, if this is something that they want to learn, again, like we talked about, not just the practical tracking skills, but also just a lot of things that you can implement into other aspects of your life as well. I certainly would recommend it. So, thanks again for being here and sharing your stories and insights with myself and the listeners today, Freddie. This has been great.
You're very welcome, Josh. Look forward to hearing from you again.
Absolutely. Semper Fi, brother.
Simplify, brother.